All right, we're here with Coach James Houghtaling, and James, this is a special one for me because you were my first coach ever.
That's right. That's right.
So many of you watching this may have heard me tell the story about my first coach, James. Made me pull out a clean sheet of paper and write my formula to sell 100 homes. This was the guy.
I still have that sheet of paper.
You still have that sheet of paper. And that conversation was in December of 07. In 2008, I sold 102 homes working with James Houghtaling. So it's real special to have you here. So James, take us all the way back to day one. Before you coached me, I'm sure you'd been doing this for a long time. So take us back to day one.
Okay, so, well, day one actually began in college.
Okay.
I had had a little house painting business during the summers of my college years, and I ended up working doing some painting for a Coldwell Banker broker.
Yeah.
And I started looking at his life, and I said, wow, man, this guy seems to have a lot going on. You know, he owns this nice house and his properties, and so I inquired about real estate. I was kind of curious how this real estate thing worked. And turns out he didn't really have a lot to share, but I had looked up and found another agent in the marketplace who had a lot of listings. And I met with her, and she said, hey, listen, if you want to make a lot of money in real estate, just follow this system. And she had given me this system of you know, material to understand about what it meant. So I digested it. I mean, I was in college anyway. I became an instant student. I literally memorized that entire process, that sales system. So I got into real estate. I left 5 days after I graduated college in upstate New York. I moved to Florida and I got my license at a crash course, and I got into real estate. And I just followed the system. And I had some immediate success. I had 45 sales my first year and just kept building on that.
So you got a taste of what it was like to work with buyers and sellers.
Exactly. So a number of years after that, I decided, my father actually passed away, and I decided that I wanted to move back home, and I enjoyed the opportunities that I had been given for speaking and doing it wasn't even really called coaching at that time, right? But I just enjoyed that. And so I started a small...
Where's back home for you, by the way?
It's Rochester, New York. Rochester, New York, yeah. So started
so
a little company.
Home.
And just kind of took to the road. Went out, started setting up seminars in cities all around the country. Speaking, selling products, selling coaching. And I did that for a number of years. And then I was actually recruited out of that into another organization to be a trainer for them. I met you.
Yeah, all right. And that was, we met in 2007.
We did.
And back then, how many coaching clients did you have?
I'd carry anywhere from 40 to 50.
Wow, 40 to 50.
Yeah.
You were working with some of the top agents around the country.
Some
so
stuff.
you were at a well-known real estate coaching organization, and you were there for how long?
4 years.
4 years. You were one of the top coaches, which is one of the reasons why
I was a coach, and I got to go out and do some of the platform events and stuff too, which was a fun experience.
Yeah, and then what happened?
Well, then the market kind of did its thing in, starting around 2008, as you know, we were working together. And what happened was their client base just continued to shrink. And it just it got to a point where it didn't make sense. They literally didn't have the clients to give me. And so I made the decision, I went back on my own. That was 2010, and had just kind of remained building my own brand, if you will. And I had a good reputation in the business. I had a lot of referrals. And
well, what I respect about what you did versus maybe some other coaches is you would literally prospect Facebook groups. Talk to us about that.
There were a couple of, and they're still out there, a couple of very large real estate Facebook groups, and they had 150,000 members each. And so what would happen is inevitably someone would put up a post, and they would say, hey, I'm thinking about getting into coaching. Got any recommendations? Well, I would hit that up, and I would friend them, I would DM them, and I created what I called my referral army within my coaching base. And I had an arrangement with them that if I sent them a link to a message, they would hop into the thread and immediately start commenting and recommending. It was a gold mine. It was a gold mine, and that worked so well to help me.
Well, what I love about it is it was innovative, and you're probably one of the few coaches, although today there's thousands. Most of them shouldn't be coaches, as you know, but you were probably one of the few that actually was prospecting. When people would inquire.
I did what I was teaching.
That's right. So when you think back to when we were working together, what were some of the things that you and I worked on?
Man, it's funny because two of the most common topics that came up as I have kind of gone through my notes were pre-qualifying. Big time. Learning to become you know, because I mean, your production was on a trajectory, and your time was constantly getting more and more valuable, and so higher standards. So pre-qualifying was one, and price adjustments, price reductions, because that market, you know, for anybody that knows what was going on, I mean, it was kind of the race to the bottom. So price reductions was a huge thing, and I think the skill of becoming a leader for you too, because you were growing an organization very fast.
I was starting to hire an assistant, showing agent, all that was starting to happen within a couple of years.
Yeah, that's right.
And so when you think back to those years, obviously 2008, I sold 100 houses. 2009, sold 150 houses. What is different about the greats that you've coached versus the average agents you've coached? What do you find that's different?
It's a great question, and I've thought about that a lot. Because inevitably, you know, when you've been coaching for a long time, and especially earlier on, you start thinking about the people that aren't getting the results, and there's a tendency to take sometimes too much responsibility. And one of the things that I learned early on, and I'll get to your question, is that I can't take responsibility ultimately for an agent's failure, but I also cannot take 100% responsibility for their success.
Correct.
Someone like you had what it took. I just needed to come along and guide the ship and motivate and keep pushing you when you needed it. So the difference is the internal fire, because that's not something I can give them. I can be the external force, but I can't give you the internal force.
Sure.
And so if an agent has that, you can work with that.
And they're coachable.
And they're coachable. That's part of it. Yeah, they have to be coachable.
So in all your years of coaching, what are one or two traits that you see outside of that? Okay, so I understand you got to have that burning desire.
You do.
What are one or two things that the greats have had through the years that you've worked with?
They bounce back quickly. Resilience. There's a great book. The author is escaping me right now, but there's a really great book called Resilience. And because listen, it's not about trying to build a career. You know, let's put it this way. Successful people succeed in spite of adversity, not in the absence of adversity. There will be adversity. So it's how quickly are you going to bounce back? How strong is your resilience? Because it's going to happen. That's huge. And I think the other big thing is they never forget that it's a conversation business. It's a people business. And so even though their methods may change, they stick with the idea that I got to be in front of people. So those are two things.
Good. So if I'm watching this video and I'm wondering, okay, why should I coach with James Houghtaling?
Okay. All right. So first of all, I have been doing this for 27 years. I've literally probably had 1,000 or more individual agents that I've coached, and all the way from newbies to rock stars, big team leaders, broker owners. And so one of the things that I really genuinely believe I bring to the table is the understanding of what it takes. Because I don't mean this in an egotistic way, but there's really nothing that a client is going to ask me about or need help with that I have not literally dealt with hundreds of times. So it's about the experience. And the other thing I always tell my clients is that I see myself as partnering with you. Okay, I'm in this with you. I care about you. I care about your results. And you know, so it's not just this superficial thing. It's literally a partnership and a relationship. So if that's something you're looking for, someone that can literally help you with whatever phase of the business you're in, and someone that is going to invest in you, then I'm your coach.
Well, I would say that's why I chose to coach with you early on. James Houghtaling,
appreciate that.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, man. Appreciate it.